Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks Lawrence for the invitation. As mentioned, my name is Patrick Bizindayvi. I know it's a long name. I was born in a country called Burundi. It's a small country in Central Africa, and I came to Canada in 2002. And I would like to share with you my journey to New Market. I was in the car with Jim, and he mentioned that we spoke yesterday together, and he asked me, what are you going to speak about? I said, I have no idea. I have so many stories that every time I'm in front of an audience and just got inspired to go out and speak. And today I would like to share with you something that happened to me a number of years ago. Have you read a book called The Alchemist?
Yes.
The Alchemist? There is a passage in the book that says, if you really want something, the whole universe conspires at you getting it. When I read that book in 2001, I was amazed, and I made a decision to create my future, to really create my future. And it doesn't matter how things look like, I'm going to create the life I want. I made that decision in 2001. And I learned that there's a difference between a fact and the truth. These are two different things. It could be a fact that 10 p.m. at night, it's a fact that it's dark. It's a fact, you can see it's dark. But the truth is the sun is shining, but you don't see it. That's the truth. And in 2001, I started a new journey, and that's why even Jim mentioned that my blog, I call it Journeymanstories. I share my stories in that blog. I started 2 years ago, and ever since I have almost 12,000 hits on the blog. And I just share my story every Monday. Every Monday I share my story. And it's called Journeyman Story, how to create your own life and go out and live it. How to create your own life. And I want to share with you a story that happened to me in 2007. I was watching a movie. I believe the movie is called The Ultimate Gift. Wonderful movie. Oh yeah, she's applauding.
She likes it.
It's a wonderful movie, and at the end of the movie, every time I watch the movie, I cry. I don't want to cry right now, but every time I watch the movie, I cry. And the first time I saw the movie, it made me sit down and think, really, what do I really want to create for my life? If I could go in the future, 20 years from now, what would I like to see? Being, my background is a journalist. I have radio shows, I write articles. So I put myself in the shoes of a journalist named Patrick. And I went in the future, 20 years from now, and I wanted to write an article about Patrick. As an observer, what do I see? It took me 8 days to write that article, because I thought to myself, I'm going to write something that, first of all, there will be no limit in terms of money and all the resources. If money was not an object, what could I do? It took me 8 days to write that article, and it was 9 pages. I put pictures, and at that time I was not married. I put myself in the picture with my wife that I didn't have. I call her ex. Because I was saying, hey, 20 years from now I'll be married, so I better put my wife in the story. So it was 9 pages long article when I talk about my 1 billion businesses and how I'm helping people, how, I just allow myself to dream. Put pictures of my foundation helping kids in Africa and all those funny stuff. And what I did, I printed out the story in color. And I was single, just living by myself. I put on the wall of my room. So every day when I would wake up, my first action plan was just to read my future. Every day, I was just reading my future on the wall with the pictures of me and ex. And After 2 weeks of reading every day just reading the story, every day just get emotionally involved in the story, I start thinking, okay, this is too big. What is one thing that I can start with? There are, I was doing radio, I was doing different things, and that was part of the plan. But I thought, in all this massive thing, what one thing I can start with? And it came to me just inside of me, say, you know what, I can start speaking. I was a basketball coach, I was an English teacher, radio host, so I'm used to speaking. How about being a professional speaker? I said, you know what, I'm going to start with that one. I went to, at that time I was working in a non-for-profit organization, and then on my way to work I was reading a book by a guy named James Ray. And I read in the book that he was part of Toastmasters. And I was like, if I've heard about Toastmasters International, yeah. It's a club that teaches people to speak in public. And I said to myself, if James Ray was in Toastmasters, maybe that would be my first step. Toastmasters. So I went in my office, sometimes you don't work, do stuff on the computer. So I started researching about Toastmasters. And I saw that different clubs in Toronto, and there was one close to where I was living at that time. I printed out the ad, but it was at 6 p.m. on Thursdays, and at that time I have my radio show. So there was nowhere I could go. Just 2 minutes after I was reading the ad, somebody knocked on the door of my office. And she said, "Oh, Patrick, have you heard about Toastmasters?" I was like, look at this! Toastmasters! And she said, no, don't worry, there's one down the street. And they meet at lunchtime on Thursday. You can go. So I went down and checked it out, came back to my office, talked to my boss, and my boss paid for a whole year membership fee for Toastmasters. That was my first step. And once you join Toastmasters, you get a magazine, like every month. So I got my first magazine, and at the end of the magazine, there was an ad about a company that trains professional speakers. I said, oh, let me go online. I went online. The first person I saw was Bob Proctor. I said, man, I'm in. If Bob Proctor is endorsing this company, I'm in. So I went on the website and created my profile. 15 minutes later, I got a phone call from the company. We read your profile, it's amazing. Are you interested in joining the training? I said, man, Bob Proctor, when, Zig Ziglar, all those big names, including myself, went to that training. I said, well, if I want to be a professional speaker, I would go to that training. And I said, yeah, no problem. And when he mentioned the price, I was like, yeah, I want to go. So I booked my training in Dallas, Texas for March 2009. I had, it was about $6,000. I didn't have $6,000. But I said, you know what, I want to go. Guess what, I was there. It took me 1 month to create $6,000. And how I did it is another story. So I went there, I received the training, I was so excited, and I said, I'm going to become a professional speaker. So I came back to my office, 2 days after my training, and I was printing some stuff on the printer, and I heard a co-worker of mine, at that time we were doing fundraising for United Way. I heard a co-worker of mine saying, oh, do you know that United Way is looking for speakers? I was like, can you repeat that again? Yeah, they are looking for speakers. I said, oh, how can I get in? She said, oh, you can go for an audition. No problem. Pick up the phone, call United Way, and went for an audition. I did my speech, they were like, oh my God, you're gonna be very busy. And I thought they were joking. In the next 2 months, I did over 50 speeches for United Way. Going for, big banks, insurance corporation, then I started speaking. And all of that came from reading my future. Deciding a speaker, Toastmasters, Dallas, Texas, United Way. And I never stopped speaking. I've been speaking all over the place. I went to different African countries, all over Ottawa, Toronto, speaking and speaking and speaking. And with friends of mine, we created a company called Best Life Motivations, in which we'll be speaking. And I've been speaking since 2007. The minute I decided to speak, it started happening. It started happening. It started happening. And last year in October, I was in my club at Toastmasters, and I saw a gentleman with nice tie, suit. I said, man, this guy is important. Maybe I should approach him. He told me his name is Phil Taylor, and he has a book. He had a book in his hands. And I read the book. I was like, man, this is interesting. Who's the author? And I looked at the cover, and there was a picture of Phil Taylor, the guy in front of me. And I said, man, we have to sit down. We have to sit down, please. So we sat down like a week after, and he told me about his company, Goal Achievers International. And what he does, he helps people to achieve their goals using mastermind. He put together groups of business owners, and they can mastermind how they can help each other. And I asked him, so how much is it? He said, oh, $500 every 3 months. And I said, can you hold on 5 minutes? I went home, take my checkbook, signed the check. I mean, I joined Goal Achievers International in the month of October last year. And I told him that my goal was to become a professional speaker. And I put a date, June 2011, I'm going to quit my job and be a full-time speaker.